Hello and welcome back to my channel, and welcome back to my Grimdark Basic solo campaign. This is episode 2 and I have entitled this The Awakening. I introduced you to the Shadow World, which was the setting that I'm going to have for my post-apocalyptic role-playing game, which is based on the Holmes Basic framework, and I'm going to just add some individual touches to that to convert it into a post-apocalyptic compliant rule set. It's not going to be complex, it's going to be quite simple. In this particular episode, what we're going to do is I am going to, first of all, I've created a map of the region that we're going to be adventuring in. I will also create a hex map as we explore some of these features, but this is in a format which is basically as if someone had begun, some scribe or some lawmaster had got, based on instructions, and had done all the kind of fancy stuff with the mountains and whatever. So I'm trying out some of my basic cartography skills. But hopefully the idea is going to try to be atmospheric, and I want to try to get, this is some of the artwork that I've created for. I did this through was it ChatGPT or was it Gemini? It was one of these what are they called, AI models, and this, I thought this was quite nice. It's kind of this quite a fantasy kind of post-Holocaust look, with the sword and the chap with the hood and the jacket, and it's the Shadow World. It's got almost like ruined skyscrapers, that type of thing. So I'm going to try to use as much of that as possible in this, and get a kind of this monochrome aesthetic, which I think is going to be quite important to this setting. And I'll bring in things like landscapes and pictures in each of my episodes. Also, I'm going to introduce which I think I've used in some of my other campaigns, of having a narrator. And I thought, well, this would be quite a nice touch, would be to do it in the style of, if you know Mad Max 2, The Road Warrior, there is a narrator at the start of the film, and I think towards the end as well, who is basically this feral child grown older, and he is recalling Mad Max, all his exploits. I'm going to have a similar kind of persona in this. I'm going to have like an enclave elder who is keen on expounding on the lore, and will be able to give us a nice little, I suppose, a more kind of period language that's fitting and appropriate to this setting. So what are we going to do in this first episode? My task is character creation, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to have 5 characters named and defined. And I have this worksheet here, which I'm going to fill out, called the Grimdark Basic Character Worksheet. I'm going to put on some, what I call persona layers. So I'll do a bit of layering of what their character is like, what their personality is like, what is their motivation. And also I'm going to have a short in-character speech from each at the end, just to kind of tie things up. So it gives you from their standpoint, what they're all about. And I've got some a bit more of this type of stuff. I've got some art that I've created. When I say created, you just put in basically a prompt, and hopefully it comes out with the right result. And I've got something that's a kind of approximate to the way I want it. I think these language models, they're reasonably limited. If you're willing to invest a lot of money in them, and get the premium versions or the plus versions, I'm sure they would produce a much better output. But I'm not really at that stage. I'm not like a millionaire pensioner. So I've just gone for the basic, and it's usually just to give me an idea, something to kind of hang on to. But I will do that when we get to that stage in the proceedings. So let's do the opening narration, kind of in the style of a Mad Max introduction. And it would be nice to have the music going because it's quite atmospheric, that music. But in the absence, I'll just have to try to give it a bit of gravitas. In the long ago, before the fall, this land was bright, but the world turned and fire swept the sky. The old kingdoms burned, the great engines died, and the age of ruin began. Centuries have passed since then, and what remains is a broken realm men now call the shadow world. The sun hangs pale. Colour itself has drained from the earth. Forests stand twisted and thorned. Mountains split like old bone, and the wastes stretch further every year. Strange creatures roam where cities once stood, and relics of the old age lie buried beneath ash and silence. Yet life clings on. Scattered enclaves survive behind makeshift walls and tattered banners, trading scraps, stories, and hope. Among them is Stone Hollow, and here is Stone Hollow in these mountains. Small and desperate, perched on the edge of the barrens and the blighted forest. It is here that a handful of wanderers will gather. These few are marked by grit, cunning, or strength beyond the common lot. Excuse me. Individuals shaped by hardship, sharpened by the wastes, and hardened by the long silence of the world. They are hunters, speakers, healers, sword arms, the closest thing the shadow world has to champions. And now, in the struggling enclave of Stone Hollow, 5 such souls are called together. Not heroes of legend, but the best the enclaves can offer. Chosen, trusted, and needed. For when the walls tremble and the shadows lengthen, it is these few who step out into the ruin. Because without them, the last light of the world would gutter and die. Yes. Quite a dramatic introduction to the campaign. These are the chosen people. These are the chosen few that can save humanity. Maybe not these particular individuals, but people like this that are above average, kind of superior adventurer types. They are going to help rebuild the civilization. So character development, as I've said, I'm going to begin with, and I'll just put this over here so you've got it kind of in, actually I'll put it up here so you've got it in screen. I've got this, what I call the Grimdark Basic Character Worksheet, which I am going to fill out for us. And I've already pre-populated this with 5 slots for characters. And our party, as I've said, will be 5. We will take each character in order using this template. And in the next episode, I will show completed character sheets with statistics and attributes fully detailed. So I'm not going to sit here and roll lots of dice and that would have been a good result. But I'm going to go away and create that myself, do the things like hit points, all that stuff, fill up all the equipment slots, so we're primed and ready to go. I really want to try to shape the characters in this episode and put on the layering that I quite like to do in some of my campaigns. You may have noticed from some of my other ones, I do like to invest a little bit of time in the characters to draw out their individual traits and personality, and this campaign's not going to be any different. It will be shaped by the environment. You will see that as a big impression in this process. So, class definition, and each is going to be drawn from a specific character class adapted to this environment. And these are, in turn, we're going to have what I call my zealot knights, and they are our cleric conversion. They are holy warriors of grim conviction, disciplined in doctrine. Their magic is divine invocations, fueled by belief, not benevolence. Their role is to be the enforcers of enclave law and the slayers of abominations. They also have a feature which is called Fantastic Resolve, which gives them an advantage on moral courage checks. And these might sound like basically mumbo jumbo to you just now, but when I will demonstrate this when we come to an actual when I need to show this particular mechanic in play. I can show how I can apply this cleric feature for this particular character class. Our second character type is going to be the Wasteland Warrior, and they are our fighter analog, and they are resilient, armored survivors trained for the wastes. Their magic, they have none, but they have brutal martial skill. Their role is to be frontline, skilled, and deal with leadership. They feature as one of their special features is scavenged arsenal, so they can modify weapons with technological fragments. So they are always on the hunt for technological weaponry that they can marshal into and almost like reforge into usable equipment and expand the enclave dominion through that kind of means. Our third class is called the Arkborn, and they are individuals. These basically are magic user conversion. They are individuals whose ancestors' bodies absorbed arcane fallout generations ago. So they have a kind of almost like a genetic imprint based on this strange radiation, this magical arcane fallout. And this has basically stamped its mark in these individuals. They are almost like a breed apart now. Their magic is innate sorcery, and they have a potential danger that spells may degrade their physical form over time. So they might actually mutate as they cast magic. This is quite a sobering thought for this class. Their role is going to be offensive sorcery, and also lore seekers. They do pride themselves in knowing things about this particular environment, like probably some of the definitions of what these individual places are, and some of the lore behind it. We've got this thing called Hellscar Peak, which is basically a hollowed out volcano. What they would probably know the history of that. What these ash wastes are, that type of thing. Some of the other classes will actually have experienced that type of terrain, but at least these Arkborn would probably have a bit of lore about what these things are. So that is their feature as well. If we come to their feature, it's called a mutagenic surge. And they risk mutation each time they cast above their level. So again, I'm not going to show you any of the mechanics on that just now. I'm going to leave it pretty freeform and open. But basically, I'm going to be using the magic system out of Homes, and then reskinning the spells and changing the names, and also some of the actual means of spell actually gaining and also deployment in this particular setting. So I'm not going to do anything radical, but hopefully it will have a completely different feel and vibe, and that's what you can do with a basic system like this, like Homes. You can really almost like just change all the names, change all the like the monsters and whatever. You've still got a very solid framework that you can enhance and present as a different genre or environment. and that's what I'm going to do in this. So that adds up to 3. Our 4th character is the scavenger class, and that's going to be our classic thief conversion. And they are former criminals, wanderers, tunnel rats, and relic hunters. They have no magic, and their role is going to be exploration, infiltration, and survival tricks. And they're going to feature a special ability of what I call relic sense. So they can detect technological artifacts when we are doing hex exploration. So when I have my hex map and we're out searching through the Iron Barrens or whatever, they will have more chance of finding these relics and ancient technology, ancient artifacts. That is their specialism for finding these things. And then we have our final class, which I have called, and this hasn't got really any analog in basic D&D, but I suppose the nearest equivalent would be our ranger class, if we had that in basic, and I've called this the Nomad Warden. And they are survivalist wanderers trained to venture forth into the wilds. And they do have some very minor magic. They can deal with minor charms and spirit rites. So there is a kind of mystical element to them. And their role is going to be of guides, hunters, and scouts. And what is not going to be very rich pickings in this environment, but they are attuned to dealing with any hunting that can be actually, or scavenging for resources that can be prized out of this very hostile landscape. And they have a feature. They have a feature of what I call Pathfinder of Ruin, and they can reduce hex travel dangers. So when we are traveling, they are good at protecting parties, keeping it safe. A bit like in AD&D, where you have rangers giving a better surprise roll, that type of thing. So that is the individual classes. We've got 5 of them. And when it comes to gender, I've got this other line here, gender. Enclave and Survivor Life has basically leveled human society in terms of gender roles. So I've actually gone for a 3-2 mix, where I've got our Zealot Knight is male, our Wasteland Warrior is female, our Arkborn is female, our Scavenger is male, and our Nomad Warden was female. So when I was rolling up just on my own, I came up with this particular mix. So that's what we're going to have. We also have a box free for names. So names are interesting in this. Well, I call it interesting. I hope you find this interesting. Names are reminders of the world and the cataclysm, and the hope is that each survivor will aspire to a new name when the world is whole. So there's a bit of a kind of lore about names, and I've got the narrator to maybe just explain a bit more. So we're going to just hand it over to the narrator for just a little while. In the shadow world, names are born from ash. The old ones were lost in the great burning, and so the survivors took new names, names of dust, ruin, and the broken earth, so that none would forget what the world became. Yet even now, a quiet hope endures, that those who prove themselves in the darkness may one day earn a true name, a name for a world made whole again. In Stone Hollow, 5 such souls now gather, the rare few stronger than fear, chosen to step beyond the walls and face the long shadow for us all. Okay, so there's a bit of a lore behind names, and what I'm going to do, we get our first chance to use the dice and get my 20-sided dice out. And I've got 2 columns here. I've got this one, and not really too much difference. It's the same kind of, basically quite harsh names. I'm going to have a first name and a second name, and I'm just going to order it whichever way it sounds better. So we're going to have a little, maybe as much fun as you can have in the shadow world. We're going to have it now. So let me get my dice shaker. And we'll have our zealot knight first, and we'll name him. So we're going to have 17, which is frost. So I'll put this down here before we commit. Frost. And the second column is going to be 14. And 14 is coil. Frost coil. Would it be coil frost? Frost coil. I think frost is a good name. I don't really like coil very much. Let me just maybe try another one and see if I get something. Sorrow. Frost sorrow. Sorrow frost. Would sorrow frost sound better? Or frost sorrow? How about his name is Sorrow? Yeah, sorrow. Yeah, we'll do that. Sorrow frost. So sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Maybe in this instance, it's not quite. It probably will grow in us. Sorrow, that is. You can just think of it in the context of where we are, and these names have a kind of a mythical meaning. They represent the harshness, this awful shadow world, and every name is an aspect of it. So there's a lot of sorrow. What about our wasteland warrior, our fighter? So we'll do our first one, and we get a 17, and that's frost. So we're not going to do that one again. Let's just, in fact, we'll do 17 on the other one. So we've got fell, just so that we haven't wasted the roll, and 9. So 9, flint. Yes, flint fell. Yeah, I think that would do. I would go. I like flint. Flint is a good name for flint. And fell. Flint fell. So sorrow frost and flint fell. And you can almost like run them into one word. They don't have to be like a kind of our surname and first name. Sorrow frost, flint fell. Maybe think of them as one. That might be a better way to look at it. And when I do the character sheets, I might just do it that way. And we've got our Arcborn, who is basically our magic user. And we're going to have a 17 again. We've already had 17. It seems to be obsessed with 17. So 12. Bitter. So what is bitter going to be with? Bitter 16. Ember. Bitter ember. Ember bitter. I think bitter ember might sound good, wouldn't it? Bitter. And this is a female. Bitter ember. Ember would be quite a good first name, but bitter. Yeah, I like bitter maybe as, that might work. Bitter ember. I like it. Okay, and we've got our thief character. What are they going to be like? We've got 7. What is going on with the 17s? Can we just stop? 19. Mire. Yes, mire, yeah. Mired in scandal. This one, and 15 is dire. Mire dire. I think that one's crashed and burned there. So 19, shatter. Shattermire. Shatterdire. Shattermire. I think shatter. Shattermire. Yeah, Shattermire. Right. I'm sure these names will grow in us. It might be better, because if you actually chose them yourself, you'd have things like, I will go for a raven sorrow, or raven shade, or ember thorn. That sounds really quite, and I'm getting all this Shattermire and bitter ember. But it is what it is. These could be important names in the lore of the Shadow World. So let's find out, what is our nomad warden? Let's see if we can get something quite profound for it. And this is a lady. So 15, char, as in charred. Char. And the second one is an 8, thorn, char thorn, thorn char. How about char thorn? Char thorn. That'll do. Yes, let us not delay any longer with these names. I gave you an idea of what we can have. Things like Bane, Wolf Bane. That would have been quite Iron Thorn, Iron Gloom, Flint, Hollow. We got all the kind of bit rather off-piste words, but there you go. Right, so that has done the names. Now we move on to what I call personal ethos. And to explain this, I am going to just give you a little bit of a blurb on what this means. This is a short descriptor of a character's guiding principle, moral compass, or survival instinct. This is basically going to replace alignment in this setting. And this should drive behavior, affects my despair and morale checks that I was alluding to in the first episode, and also shapes reactions in ethical or horrific situations, and really guides my role-playing of these characters. The core personal ethos is determined by the class and indoctrinated into the character through training and belief. So I've already got some that are pre-populated. I have something called the shadow ethos, which is the shadow personal ethos is the individual's own personality that has been suppressed by the environment and training. And if this is different, it may emerge and conflict with the core persona. Now, this has to be rolled for. We might not have a shadow personality. We might just go for the personal ethos. And that's so strong, it basically phases out any other influence in their personality. But we're going to find out on an individual basis whether they do actually have a shadow ethos, or are they just going to keep to their own personal one. This is my summary of these types. And these are the ethos types that we're talking about. And so for our zealot knight, they are always crusading zealots. And a crusading zealot is number 7 on our list, seeks to enact retribution in this world and on those viewed as outcasts. So a very harsh ethos is drummed into these individuals. That is what that character is all about. What about we'll go to the ones that are pre-populated. And our Arcborn is a curious observer. So she pursues knowledge even at personal danger. So that's what they do. What does our scavengers do? Our thieves, and they have survivor first. And survivor first prioritizes survival above all else, may abandon non-essential allies or resources. So very selfish kind of about the individual and prioritizing their survival. So I'm saying they may abandon non-essential allies. They're going to be quite circumspect on how they deal with their associates. And they're probably the weakest link in the team. And they maybe have strong leadership to keep them in line. And then we have our final one, which is our ranger, our nomad warden, and they are stoic ascetic. Stoic ascetic endures suffering with patience, shows moral strength and fortitude, and they get a plus on resistance to this despair mechanic, which I will show in one of the next episodes. So they are the ones that are pre-populated. The only one that we have to make a choice on, because here is the class distribution here. The Wasteland Warrior can have any apart from 1, 3, 5, and 7. So that leaves 4 to do. So I'm just going to roll a d8 and see whether see exactly what Flint's particular personal ethos is. And we can't have a 7. And we can't have a 3. How long is this going to go on for? And we can't have a 5. So all the numbers. And we can't have. Can you believe it? So we've had all the ones that we can't have. So let's see if we can get one that we can. Yeah, we have a 4. So we have a winner. 4. Pragmatic opportunist. Does what works. Morality secondary. Right. Well, that sounds okay. We'll have pragmatic opportunist. And the other ones that we could have had protector of the weak, risk self for others, gains morale bonus when saving innocence. We not had redemption seeker, seeks to repair past sins, gains despair when failing altruistic acts. And a dutiful rebuilder, keeper of the old ways and strives to rebuild enclave society. So that has done our personal ethos, our core ones. Let us consider a shadow ethos. And this is the one that's been suppressed by the individual. And I say that on a roll of 1 to 4 on a d6, personal ethos is deemed core. Otherwise, a shadow motivation is determined randomly. So it's only on a 5 to 6 that we're going to get a shadow. So let's see if there's a shadow ethos for Sorrow, our zealot knight. No, he's fine. He is an absolute fanatic. He's going to stay completely focused on that. Flint, see whether she has. Nope, she is a pragmatic opportunist. What about Bitter, a curious observer? And yes, she is something. So she has a shadow. Where is my D8 gone? Yes, here it is. I've got black D8. Let's find out what her shadow ethos is. She's a 1, so she is survivor first. Okay, so she's a bit more of a selfish leader, warrior. So she'll have that as a competing. Maybe there's just something to do with her background. She's come from, she's had to be very self-reliant, and as all, instead of being, with all the training that she's had, she still has that selfish gene in her, to survival above all else, and potentially she might abandon. So she might be in with a survivor first mentality with Shatter, and so Shattermeyer, are we going to have a shadow ethos for him? No. And are we going to have a shadow ethos for Charthorn? Nope. So we've only got 1 shadow ethos, so that is good. That is all done. So that is that stage of the process done. I have the next one, which is called special feature. And so each character may have a distinctive feature which manifests itself either physically or mentally. And I roll a d6 per character. And on a 1 to 2, they will have no special feature. On a 3, I have what is called a fear. On a 4, they have another motivation, a personal motivation. On a 5, they might have something in their appearance. On a 6, we'll roll again twice. And if I get another 6, I will just cease rolling. So the fears that we would have are these: 1 to 6, mutants and aberrations, creatures warped by centuries of fallout and magic, relic malfunction, ancient technology turning on its user with deadly results, starvation or contamination, enclave betrayal, isolation, despair itself. So if we get a fear, it's going to be one of those. An internal motivation, what keeps them going, and that's going to be things like vengeance, duty, the flicker of hope, the survival instinct, curiosity, companionship, and with the appearance, what scar do they carry from the harsh and deteriorated state of the world centuries after the fall fire? And I have a 6 potential, blemishes on their appearance that I can apply, and will give a bit of character and a bit of atmosphere to those, to the way we visualize them. But we have to determine for each individual character whether they are going to be they're going to be touched with a special feature. So for each one, I'm going to roll on this table. So we'll do our Zealot Knight first, Sorrow Frost. See whether he has a special feature. He's got a motivation, which is over and above, or slightly, well, maybe as part of his crusading zealotry. And what is it going to be? What keeps him going? It is vengeance. Okay, someone or something must pay for past ruin. So, vengeance. He has, so that I'll put as an M. I'll put vengeance. So, he is sounding like to be quite a fanatic. Now, whether it's about an individual, someone or something must pay for past ruin. Maybe he blames the precursors, or he blames something in society. He wants to get revenge for it. We could probably work on that and see whether our role-playing brings out this information. Okay, so that's the first one. What about Flint, our Wasteland Warrior? We'll roll on the table, and we get a 1, so no special feature for her. Bitter, our Arcborn, our magic user, we get a 5, so appearance. Okay, so on appearance, we'll roll a d6. See what is affecting her appearance. 4. So, relic exposure. Subtle marks from handling a malfunctioning old tech. So, faint circuitry lines under the skin or static flickers around the eyes. Well, yeah, that's quite an interesting appearance. So this probably, actually kind of turns in with her background as this Arcborn, and they are all to do with this strange radiation, this arcane radiation. I like this relic exposure, and just the way it maybe makes her eyes, this kind of flickering in her eyes, and these strange sort of faint circuitry coming out over her cheeks to the side of her eyes, like that. So we'll have relic exposure as Bitter's facial change, these subtle marks. Okay, and they could have been quite nasty. You could have marsh rot scars, hard fibrous patches on the body from prolonged exposure to poisonous marshes, stagnant waters, or plague mists. So let's see if we get a chance to apply any of these other ones to our other characters. We still have 2 to go, so let's roll for Shatter, our scavenger, and he gets to roll again twice. Right, okay. So let's roll for him. So he gets an appearance, and what else? And he gets no special. So he's just going to have an appearance. So let's roll for Shatter's additional appearance. So he's got a 5. Right. So 5 is Beast Torn, scarred by mutated wildlife or wasteland predators. So he's got probably make some quite significant scarring, either on his body or maybe even on his face. So he has a Beast Torn. So he's probably quite a hardened looking individual now. Maybe this, body wise and even facially. So that is Shatter done. We've got one last character, and that is going to be Charthorn. And Charthorn again has got another appearance. So we're really going to town on the appearance. Number 1. So wasteland. Well, this is very appropriate. Wasteland weathered, skin permanently cracked, wind burned and greyed from ash storms and toxic winds. So yes, that sounds absolutely up Charthorn's street. So we're going to have a wasteland weathered, And it would have been quite interesting, you know, because enclave branded is quite a good one. That's marked by an enclave's harsh justice or initiation rites, a reminder of the brutal societies that arose after the fall fire. And you can almost imagine that Sorrow Frost would have something like that. But he's got this vengeance thing going. Flintfell is the only one that's got away with nothing. She is not blighted by a special feature, which on the majority seem to be rather negative. Okay, that has completed basically all the worksheet that I wanted to do. I am going to select individual pawns for these. So I have a grey pawn for Sorrowfrost. I have a blue pawn for Flintfell. I have a white pawn for Bitter Ember, and I have a brown pawn for Shattermire and a black pawn for Charthorn. Now, I was really quite limited because I didn't want anything with any much colour. So, you know, I thought as the least colourful would be a dark blue and a dark brown. So that is the limit. So I'm trying to keep all the pawns to kind of rather a monochrome look, rather dull down look. Right, I think that's basically just about everything I wanted to do, apart from I was thinking maybe I could do some short character introductions, and I did mention that I'd created some art using these language model things. And you know, this is a very rough view of what these characters are like, but yeah, this is supposed to be Sorrowfrost, our zealot knight, and you know, if you maybe jettison, I don't really want shield because I'm not going to have shields as part of the weapon system in this setup. So if you maybe jettison the shield and maybe tone down a bit on this absolutely massive war mace, and maybe not quite as archaic in the look, in the armor, maybe a bit more tech looking, but that was the overall kind of aesthetic I wanted. Still quite fantasy. Let's hear from Sorrowfrost, what his actual backstory is, and you can use this as a kind of way to visualize what he looks like. I was tempered in shrines where the last embers of the old world burn behind iron grates. We swore oaths there, oaths to stand when others flee, to burn with purpose even in a world made of ash. My armor is a relic of belief more than metal, and my mace answers to discipline stronger than fear. If the shadow creeps closer, I'll be the wall that does not break. So that is what he says in his resounding, deep baritone voice. So that is Sorrowfrost. What about Flintfell? And this is my Flintfell. I quite like this one. You know, she's got this kind of jaggy sword. Again, quite fantasy looking, and that's the sort of look I wanted, but with this kind of scrappy armor look. You know, they've all got these kind of weathered cloaks, you know, veiling their faces because of the harsh environment. And what would she say? What would Flintfell say to us? She would say, the wasteland isn't a place for soft folk. Out there, storms flay the skin and the ground cuts your boots open. That's where I learned to fight, brawling for water, scraping for food, and hunting beasts twisted by old poison. They say I'm stubborn as cracked stone, maybe, but stubbornness keeps you breathing. Stone Hollow needs a shield with fists attached. Then here I am. So she is volunteering her services. Good old Flintfell. She might well be our leader, might be, although she'd probably be a jousting for a pole position with the Zealot Knight. Let us see. What about Bitter Ember? And Bitter Ember is our Arcborn, and this is what I view as being the Arcborn, clutching her book, Book of Spells. Of course, we're going to be some Dungeons and Dragons campaign without a Book of Spells, even in a post-Holocaust situation. And what is her message? Most mages can't explain where their power comes from. I can. I've seen the glow beneath my skin, the same pale fire that flickers in the tech shrines of blacklight reach. Arkborn, they name us, touched by remnants of something the old world tore open. I don't control the power, I negotiate with it. If Stone Hollow needs my spark, they'll have it, but they should pray the Ark stays quiet. So, a bit of foreboding there. She's dealing with powers that are unknown, and Stone Hollow. They are probably not too au fait with these Arkborn. They seem to come from specific regions. I will still determine where that is on the map. The only enclave that I have so far charted is Stone Hollow Enclave here, nestling in these mountains. There are other enclaves that we will discover, and no doubt some of these individuals are from them. Where are we? We're going to do Shattermire. Shattermire, our scavenger. What would he say to us if he was standing before us? And what would he look like? What would he be saying? And this is what Shattermire looks like. He's looking a wee bit, a bit dodgy, a bit scheming, being a bit scavenging looking. He says, "I know the ruins better than I know people. The old world left bones of metal and forgotten chambers. And if you listen close, you can hear their secrets hum. I crawl through the wreckage others fear, pry loose what still shines, and try not to wake the things that sleep below. Some call me reckless. But if the Enclave wants someone who can find hope in rust, that's me." So he's got a special job to do, and he's not afraid to do it. He likes to say it. He's probably going to be our comic relief in this, but let us not. Maybe I just want to be one of the other characters. I just got the feeling that the other characters are a bit more serious, a bit more kind of grounded. Our final character, our final one of the 5, Charthorn, our female nomad warden. What does she look like? Can you get any more ranger than that in a post-apocalypse? That is what she sort of looks like. Let's just say she does. I've got the background. Everything looks okay. She would say, "My people don't build walls. We roam the broken valleys, reading wind and earth like scripture. I've tracked night beasts across frozen ravines and led caravan bands through marshes that swallow whole wagons. Stone Hollow asked for a warden, someone who knows the land better than fear. So I've come. The wild speaks plainly to those who listen, and right now it whispers warning." So that is basically me completed my character creation process. As I've said, I will beaver away and create some nice atmospheric character sheets. At least we've got some pictures in our heads of what these individuals look like. They're all here, so I can keep as a backup for our information. We've got a map that we can start adventuring across, and I can expand on. In our next episode, we're going to check out the starting enclave of the Stone Hollow, and I'm going to detail that a wee bit, and you'll get just a quick introduction to that. And then we will set out what the first mission is going to be. We're going to sort of establish what are the threats and the dangers that Stone Hollow faces, and what is the starting mission designed to deal with, whether it is born of desperation or some other reason. And we will commence our adventure in this cursed place in the next episode. Okay, so hopefully I have got your interest. We've got these character names. They're already starting to grow on me. If I say them enough, they will, Sorrowfrost, Flintfell, Bitter Ember, Shattermire, and Charthorn. if we said them in one word, that might actually sound a bit better. So they will grow in us. I'm sure we will start rooting for these characters as they start doing some exploits in the shadow world, um, where there is no I was going to say there is no place to hide, but I suppose there's lots of shadows, whatever. I am looking forward to having a bit of just a free-form fantasy campaign where it's really based on my pure imagination, and I've got all these elements which I detailed in my first episode, bringing all those out and more that come to mind as we explore through. There is a massive amount of possibilities. I never actually played, when it comes to post-apocalyptic games, the only one I really played was Aftermath. Which is a very detailed representation of this type of thing. I don't think I ever played Gamma World. I might have played one adventure. I can't honestly recall. Metamorphosis Alpha was a different story. I did play that a bit, but not very much. And that was really at the start when we were playing. So my memory of this type of style of role-playing is very skewed towards the hyper-realistic one. So this gives me a channel, a kind of avenue and a place for me to live out these kind of more extreme fantasy type situations, and be a bit more freeform and imaginative, and not be maybe shackled by quite a almost an oppressive rules regime, which keeps you very grounded. I can bring in all the fantasy elements, which I want to do in this particular instance. Okay, I have definitely talked enough. What I will do is get myself ready for the next episode, where we will be visiting our fellow survivors in Stone Hollow Enclave and setting out on our first mission. But so thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.